This is Daniel from Raunow Consulting. Today I'm going to show you how you can scale your dedicated Synapse SQL pools using Data Factory pipelines. This is useful for when you, for example, know that you will have a heavier resource intensive load to do to the pool or some other type of processes that you're going to do from the Data Factory. You can really save on costs by just implementing this solution where you scale up before starting the process and then scale back down right after finishing it. We will do this by issuing a call to the Synapse REST API directly from a Data Factory pipeline. First of all, what we will need to do this is to give the Data Factory Managed Identity Contributor role to the SQL, to this dedicated SQL pool, so that it can actually authenticate the API call. If we go to our Data Factory here, go to Managed Identities. Whenever you create a Data Factory, this Managed Identity, the System Assigned Managed Identity should be created along with it automatically. And if we go to Role Assignments, you can see here I have granted my Data Factory contributor to the resource group where I actually have the Synapse workspace and the dedicated SQL pool. Of course, I've done this just in case that maybe I want to use this Data Factory for that other stuff in the future as well, but you can easily grant it contributor just to your dedicated SQL pool. If we go back to the pipeline, you can see here that we are going to use the web activity and the pipeline to actually make the API call. And for this, first of all, we are going to need to construct the URL for the call. You can see how to do this here. Of course, going to use a patch method. You can see here that we're using this construction for the API call. We need the subscription ID, the resource group name, the workspace name, and the SQL pool name. Mainly all of these things you can just find in the page for the Synapse workspace. We have the subscription ID and the resource group. I'm pretty sure you can find these pretty easily. Also, with regards to what we saw here with the API version, you can simply go to the REST API documentation from Microsoft and you will find the API version right here. You'll also find here a more detailed explanation on how to construct these calls, what you can include in the body, and some other examples. If we go back to our pipeline, so I have the URL, we're using the patch method. Now for the body of the pipeline, I'm basically using the concat method to create this string, and I'm using pipeline parameters to actually tell the API what sizes to scale the pool. Here I have a parameter for scaling up, and if we have a look at the other web activity, we have another parameter for scaling down. I've just used the wait activity here as a placeholder for whatever pipelines or processes you would be running when using this. Of course, authentication is system assigned managed identity, and the resource is just the beginning of the URL. So we can just trigger our pipeline. And actually, before doing that, I can show you that you see I have the dedicated pool here, and it is currently sitting at 100 units. Now, after I trigger the pipeline, leave the parameters as they are, we're just going to scale up to 200, wait for a minute, and then scale back to 100. So the pipeline is running. If I go to the pipeline run, you can see that the scale up process has started. If we go back to the dedicated pool, you can see that now it is scaling. The cool thing about this is that it will not go further to the next activity until the scaling process is complete, and it's going to receive an OK answer from the API. This is actually going to take a while, so I'm just going to show you how it looks on a previous run. If I go to all pipeline runs, I can use one that I ran some time ago. And you can see here, it actually took 11.5 minutes to scale it up. Then it just went into the wait activity and then proceeded to the scale down activity. You can of course also use this method with triggers. For instance, another very common use case for this is basically to scale up your dedicated SQL pools. If you're administrating these, scale them up in the morning just before everybody starts using them, and then scale them back down in the evening, and also leave them scaled down during the weekend. That's it. Also, one more thing to mention, which is pretty important. If the API call is successful, you cannot, there is no way of reversing it. Even if I were to, for instance, actually I can show you this. If I go back to my pipeline run, I can cancel the run right now. You can see it's not done scaling. Just going to cancel the run. And if I go back, the SQL pool is still scaling. So bear this in mind and be careful when actually using these, because once the call is made, if it is a correct call, it is irreversible. Thank you very much for your time, and see you on the next video.